Welcome to Full Circle Podcast. It is your favorite brother Joseph, as always. Listen, I want to say thank you so much once again for tuning in, taking the time to listen. Today, as promised, we have a special episode talking about the movie Sinners. And I know for a long time I promised y'all that we were going to have guests. And since we weren't able to do that before, we don't have one, we don't have two. We got 5 guests in the room, 6 people, myself included. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that. Right now, let's start on this side of the room. Claudio, go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll just make our way around.
My name is Claudio. I'm an artist out in LA, and I love the movie.
Amazing. I love the enthusiasm. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Demi. I'm an artist, and I live out here in LA. We're going to get into this movie. We're going to get into it.
Demi's being a little modest. Demi is also a model, okay? She's not just an artist. She's a model, and she was most recently in a short film with your boy, so that's always great. Okay, Isabella.
What up? My name's Isabella. I'm an actress and comedian living in LA. And yeah, here we are. We're going to talk about the movie, eh?
Amazing. Great.
Yeah, my name's Chaz. We're all in LA. We don't need to keep saying that. God. Like we're living here right now.
But it feels weird, right?
I'm in LA. I'm an actor. I'm trying.
We're all trying.
That's just a tagline. I'm trying.
I create content on social media. Been doing that for like 12 years, something like that. And I have some interesting thoughts about this. I'm excited to open up the combo with y'all.
I'm excited to hear that. If people might look at you right now and be like, bro kind of looks familiar, but I'm not sure where I know him from. Where would somebody potentially have known you from?
Vine, most likely.
Okay, give me a little taste. Which Vine?
I'm pronouncing things incorrectly. Watermelon.
Yeah, it's the inside of a watermelon.
That's you.
Oh, that's crazy.
Bro, the first thing I said when I saw it, I was like, I feel like I know you, bro.
See, the fact that you're just geeking right now. You're just having a moment.
That's crazy.
Amazing. Look at that. All right. Look at that.
All right.
Look at God. Look at him. All right.
God.
That's fire. Congratulations, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
I love that for you. Oh, shit.
Go ahead.
Hello. My name is Matthew East. I live in LA. I'm passionate about people.
That's it. I like that.
I like that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Damn, that's good.
That's solid.
Succinct.
I think that's how most conversations should start.
That was
Just be
solid.
passionate about people, and everything else will flow from there.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to go. Y'all already know who I am, so I ain't even got to do that. Let's jump right into it. Before we do, if you are listening or if you're watching this, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, we have some of those coming soon as well. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button. Go ahead, follow us, share with your friends. As I always say, it is free to support a nigga unless you want to do more. So go ahead and get us started with that. What I want to do today is get some perspective from y'all around the room about the film Sinners. Obviously, it started a major conversation in culture. Some people have talked about it from the perspective of race. Some people have talked about it from the perspective of, finding redemption. Obviously, like all of us creatives, actors, whatever, it's like so fun to watch and see how the acting was and how they dove into that. But before we dive into that, I want to find out from y'all, like, what are some of your favorite movies? Just to kind of set the tone and get some perspective about your point of view. So go ahead. Just go ahead and start. Tell me like a favorite movie of yours.
Goodfellas. Anything Scorsese does, I think, is not anything. A handful of things he's done, I think, are masterclasses of film. And Goodfellas, I think, is like just top of the list. I think so many movies have tried to be Goodfellas since then, which I think is how you get a mark of like a groundbreaking film, is when you see movies trying to mimic for 20, 30 years afterwards. You're like,
1,000%.
oh, so that was just a phenomenal piece of art.
Yeah.
Which I think this movie is as well.
I think that's solid.
Yeah, I loved Dune Part 1 in particular. The reason why Dune Part 2 is still great, but the pacing at the end kind of threw me off a little bit. Like, he crunched a lot into those last 45 minutes that was meant to be way longer in the book. But the reason why I love Dune Part 1, just one reason, is you can literally watch that movie, pause it on any shot, literally any shot in that movie, and hang it up on your wall. Last time I watched it, I was really trying to find like which shot is not, like, are there any shots that aren't really solid. Like every single
Yeah.
shot in that movie, you could take a frame from it and put it up on your walls. That, yeah, Denis Villeneuve and the cinematographer was working on, like, they, yeah, that might be my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, no, I just to tap on that really quickly. I was gonna say Dune, either part 1 or part 2, just because of like the set pieces. When you're world building and a film like that, it pulls you into the world without words. You just see set pieces and costumes, and you automatically become like attached to the story before the dialogue and everything. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yep.
So for me, I'm gonna have to say
Past lives.
You already know that film it's a beautiful story of love and relatability, and the way they shot that was, in my personal opinion, some may feel differently, which is fine because I don't care, it's my opinion. Some may feel differently, but I think it was a masterclass, and I thoroughly appreciated that film. Yeah.
They put me onto that film.
Yeah.
Gorgeous film. I just saw that recently.
Oh wow.
Yeah, gorgeous. So good.
It's one of the things that, and we'll talk about this a little bit today as well, but one of the things that I really like about films like Past Lives, or especially a lot of A24 films, it's really shot and also written to connect to the human experience and to leave you in the space of having to deal with all of the messiness of it. And that movie was kind of messy in terms of like, okay, you know, she's got the this past relationship, and then there's a cultural aspect, and then she made a decision. And so I think independent films or films that are a little bit more with original ideas, as we're going to talk about today, you're just starting to see a lot more public reaction to it that's positive, and people want to see a good story that's fresh and that's new, but it's connected, you know? So yeah, definitely agree on Past Lives.
I'm gonna take it back.
You take back Past Lives?
No, I'm gonna take
Take it way back.
my movie.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna go with The Wiz. So that like resonates in my childhood, and like seeing, wow, like an all black cast do The Wizard of Oz, and that take, and Michael, and just like so moving. And I remember just like dancing around the table as a kid, like he's on down the road, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's one of my favorites. But that's a good question because there's so many great pieces of work out there, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What about you, Isabella?
I mean, I love movies with characters you can kind of sink your teeth into. Like Magnolia is a great movie. Just, I can only imagine the kind of work you have to do as the actor to really give this person life and make them a human being versus like a two-dimensional stereotypical version of like someone with, you know, bipolar disorder or things like that. It's like finding the humanity and bringing it to life. And even like movies like Black Swan. Black Swan has been one of my favorite movies since it came out. And like I remember reading the script and feeling the exact same way reading it as I did watching it. And I'm like, that is great script writing. That is like, it leaves you on the edge of your seat as you're reading it. Like, I know exactly what happens, but I'm still like trying to read as quickly as possible so I can get to the point that I'm trying to get to. But then at the same time, I love like slice of life movies. Like, I mean, beautiful cinematography and art. Like in Sinners, every single shot was curated and beautiful and perfect, in my opinion. But I also like kind of the indie style of like, you feel like you're a fly on the wall in someone's life and you're just watching them wake up in the morning, make breakfast. What do they do? How do they do it based on, you know, what happened before, what they have coming to them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of both. I love the special, curated, beautiful, planned, cinematic filmmaking style, but I also love that raw, human, truthful way of making films and just telling a story, and that's what it is. It doesn't have to be glamorous or super deep. It's just life.
Yeah.
So those are my two kind of things. Yeah.
I like that. It's something you can connect to, you know. I like that.
Yeah, I think that's solid. I mean, just kind of going around the room, it sounds like, you know, from what I'm hearing, you got a film that's beautiful set pieces, like the pictures grab you, and then you're talking about something that other people want to follow because it sets a standard. And then you're talking about over here like a film that I saw myself in that, and there was something that connected to me at a very, very young age where I knew I wanted to be in that world, even though I had no context for it. And then, you know, you're talking about a film that it feels really, really real and it feels connected. I can see myself in it, but it also takes me into another space. So I think all of those things are, man, all those things are really important. I would say for me, it's kind of hard for me because I have a lot of films that I like, but I would say recently a film that
The Minecraft movie.
Nah, Lego Batman, dude.
Lego Batman is a solid.
I heard Lego Batman.
Lego Batman is a solid movie.
Lego Batman is good. I think, you know, I think I would watch it over the Justice League Ben Affleck Batman situation.
You
But
actually laugh in Lego Batman.
yeah. Which we could use some actual humor in films now. But I would say a film that I've been going back to a bit more recently is Interstellar. And Interstellar, for me, I feel like it's so beautifully shot, but it takes a big story of people that are trying to get to another planet, see if there's, you know, life out there. But the small part of it is a father who's just motivated to try to take care of his family. And he's trying to, like, what I love about Nolan is that he takes big stories or big drama, but it's always about one individual who's trying to either save somebody or save people that he knows, and he's up against time. And that is something that I really saw. Like, how far would you go, even if you have to leave your family or people that you love behind, to do something that will benefit them? And so that's a film that my friend Sam, he couldn't be here today, but like he thinks that is like the best movie he's ever seen, like ever. Like he's like, the more I watch it, I'm convinced it's my favorite movie, and it's the best one ever. And so I've been watching it a little bit more with that in mind. But I think any movie that, kind of like what you said, any movie that makes me feel something, and not just feel something like, okay, I felt that, whatever, let's go home, but something that like resonates with me, sits with me, I'm thinking about it, I take inspiration from it and other things that I'm working on acting wise. I would say that's a really big indicator for me. So yeah.
One thing to connect Interstellar to this movie and tie it in with like one of my favorite parts, if not my favorite part of the film, I think what makes Interstellar stand out is the score.
Yes.
So like, I believe that was Hans Zimmer. He
Hans
worked
Zimmer.
on a lot of Christopher Nolan stuff. The melody that is played for Interstellar, people that haven't even seen the movie know the song. They don't know where they know it from. They don't know what it is, but they know it because it's iconic. Sinners, Ludwig Göransson is like Mozart with film scoring. He's also taken over. He's worked on a lot of Nolan stuff. He's worked on all the Coogler stuff. He works at Childish Gambino. He worked on TV. He worked on Community. He's done everything. He's
he did Mandalorian as well.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. He's the reason why Black Panther has to this point, but I think Sinners is kind of challenging it, but like the most interesting score of the last 20 years.
Absolutely.
Original music. And also like understanding the culture from which the film is being made of, you know what I'm saying? And knowing how to translate that. But with this one, like Smoke and Annie, the reason why that last scene with her and like her angelic white and everything is so moving is because her melody comes back. She has her own melody and it's reprised 3 times. Even when he stabs her through the heart, as soon as he rushes over to her, the melody starts playing.
Yeah.
And so it's audible connection between these characters that like ties us in even more. The first time it plays is ridiculous. And she actually like uses the matchbook as a percussive element to match with the timing of the song, which like literally in the theater, I'm a musician. In the theater, I like screamed out. I was like, oh! And everyone was like, I was like, you missed it.
He thought he caught the spirit in the theater, or a spirit, who knows? But
The guy is from Sweden, right?
Yeah.
And do you know the backstory of his father?
No.
It's actually insane. His dad used to, so like back in the day, they used to get those blues players from the region the movie is set in. And his dad orchestrated that to bring people over to have those opportunities, his dad. Wow. And so his dad is in his like 70s now, was able to be a part of that story and go to where that originated from. And I just think the all the things that align, it's just incredible how that is attached to the opportunities his father was able to give those blues players back in the day.
100%.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I mean, since we're getting into it now, I think that for me, Sinners is a classic. Like, there's just no doubt about it. When you watch a film and you're watching it over, I mean, I've seen it 4 times, and when I'm watching it and I'm seeing different elements of things, and it's not just, oh, I'm enjoying it, but it's like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't see that. Then now when you're watching it, you see it with fresh eyes. Or when you think about it, you see it with fresh eyes. And I think any film that starts a conversation in culture, and it's not just, you know, some films, they have just like kind of preach to the choir type vibe, where, you know, I remember when I watched 12 Years a Slave, for example, and I was just like, oh my God, that was like rough to watch. But it was very obvious, like, okay, we as Black people this is a film that we did not per se need to see because we understand this, but it was one of those films that was like, a lot of my white friends started talking to me about like, oh, I maybe never saw this in this way. The horrors of it when I was in school may have been kind of washed over. But this is a film that I feel doesn't matter what your culture, doesn't matter what your background is. It is unapologetically Black, but at the same time, it welcomes people from all different backgrounds to be part of the themes in the story, to see themselves through the characters, but also in the setting of the South before the civil rights era, you know, while people were still trying to find freedom, while Black people were struggling just to be recognized, and they just want some relief from that moment. And so let's just get into talking about the film really quick. What I want to kind of get before we, you know, go into some specifics here, watching the film, upon your first watch of the film, what were some things that struck you? Like, and whoever wants to go first, you can. I think I'm gonna start with you because I feel you.
Go ahead. All right. So we can't, like, I think it would be appropriate to start with the central scene of the film, like the thesis statement shot, which was in the Juke Hall, where they started playing all the different types of music from different eras. It felt like a theater piece. As I was watching, I'm just giving like straight up honest thoughts. I felt like it was extremely well choreographed, extremely well shot. The music, everything tied in. I just kept feeling like, this is just a personal thing, it kept teetering on the line of like, yo, is this corny? Oh no. It was like, it kept edging, but I was like, oh no, I get it. I see what's going on.
Like, it didn't cross the line.
It didn't cross. It got real close right to me personally. But it was like, it was very
cool.
With the guitar and like all the different
spoilers. If you haven't watched the movie, go watch it.
Like the twerking and all that stuff, I was like, right. It was just like, it was just edging. But when I was surprised myself, I was not expecting to have this type of reaction. But when the camera started to pan up and you see the ceiling and starts to, like, a hole starts burning open in it.
Right.
And then you pan out and you see all the vampires watching them. I started to tear up a little bit. Immediately, what came to mind for me was cities like Tulsa and Rosewood, and different like organizations and industries that were built by Black people that were burned down by whites throughout history. And what's interesting is like the only thing remaining in the shot was the foundation that they were like standing on. It was like and they were like going for that. Just visually, what was being shown was the film was about, in my opinion, freedom and oppression, and there's so many different vantage points, but another way of putting it is like this. I felt like this movie was Get Out in a different era and genre. I'll just pause right there, so I know everybody got thoughts about this, but I feel like this is the first scene you really need to break down and talk about.
What are I mean, some thoughts on what Chaz just said, and then of course we keep going around, but what are some of y'all's thoughts about that?
I mean, for me, that scene, like, some of the bigger, like, there's so many themes in this movie. It's so thematically, like, deep and, like, I'm losing my words, but I feel like some big themes that are especially shown in that scene are the importance of music through film and the whole concept of time throughout the entire movie. I mean, it's about vampires, right? Immortality, they live forever. But then, like, the kind of poem, I guess, or the monologue that she has in the start about music and how if you have the gift of music, it transcends time and people and space. And then how that kind of manifests through that scene where he's playing and we have all these different eras of music coming together and like melding and mixing. And I think he kind of shows that throughout the entire movie. And yeah, I mean, that was a quick little thing, but I just love how he put those themes in and he sprinkled throughout like the concept of time. And even like from the beginning with the setting where we're at and, you know, the vampires and when they come in and talking about like, oh, you know, all these things that are so important to you, they didn't exist in another time. And I think that's another commentary on freedom and oppression. Like, and then just kind of where it goes at the end where he finally comes back and we see how Sammy grew up, but how this is still such an important and huge thing in his life, what, like 20, 30, 40 years later, however long it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to your point about that, it was so interesting to see the different music that they portrayed in that scene and how one genre from back a long time ago was the foundation for another genre. Because a lot of times, and you know, of course, we'll talk about this a little bit more deep from a music standpoint. I know you've got a lot of thoughts, especially coming from a musical standpoint. But one of the things that really stood out to me at first when I saw that scene, because when I saw the dude with like the guitar and the glass, I was kind of like, wait. At one point, it was kind of like, I was like, is this gonna pull me out of the scene? Because I had already set my mind into the reality of where we, where we were.
It was edging the
and
line.
so at that point, I was just kind of like, okay. But then I saw like the people like the kind of like in the tribal dance thing, and then I saw like the DJ, and then I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get it. But then when when you pointed out the fact of like there was a hole in the ceiling and there was fire, and then there were the vampires outside watching, then it clicked for me. I'm like, oh, this is a constant thing in Black culture, consistent. And it wasn't just Black people in that room either. There were mostly Black people in that space, but it was like, you build something, it's burnt down. You build something, it's burnt down. You build something, it's burnt down.
Or
but
stolen.
yeah, right. But the music, the culture, because if you think about what was in that space, it wasn't just music. There was food that was there. There was the cultural connection. And so when you look at those aspects, it's like we still rebuild. We still keep going no matter what. This is what keeps us alive as a people. And I also think too, because this is something that I've just even seen just, culturally, a lot of times, if you grow up and you might like different types of music, you might like rock music, you might like, country or whatever. I think for a lot of people in our culture, we've kind of been sold this idea that it's just R&B, it's just hip hop, it's just gospel. And I understand, why that is. It's kind of almost like how things were with like baseball. Like there were so many Black people in baseball, and then, Little League took over, and then people couldn't afford it because they put a cost to growing your skill in that field to get into Major League Baseball. But I also think that in many ways we've abandoned the things that we've created because it's been taken from us and then sold to us as if it's not ours. And so when you recognize that, then it becomes, okay, wait a second. When you look at all the elements in this film of where the music came from, and the foundations of it all, it's almost kind of like, no, you have to remember to reclaim that. You should be proud of the fact that this is who you are and this is where your roots are, And so that was something that just really stood out to me.
Yeah. I think I was debating like figuring out what the film was about and how to like say what it's about rather than like how I interpreted it. Because I didn't want to initially say like, oh, it's a film about race.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's a film about race. But at the same time, talking about this now, I think the choice to have them be vampires rather than like werewolves or zombies or what have you is very interesting because vampires take life, right? And so after that scene with all the music, you're watching vampires watching them, about to take their lives from them, but also take their culture. I get into a lot of like debates about like, I don't believe that there is a white American culture. I don't think that that exists. I think that there is a very clear black American culture, because they had to have their own culture because they couldn't live in white America for so long. So they had to create their own things. The fact that you show all these genres of music being played by black musicians is because most music that we listen to was started by pioneers of music, which were black musicians. Every single genre of music that we listen to. And then these people are standing outside waiting to take from them. The song that they come up and sing sounds like it's like a Southern Irish folk song, is by a black artist in the 30s.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's sung by 3 white people who, I mean, the whole thing too is like the vampire bites them and then gets their memories, right? So like, he's listening.
He says that very closely. He says, he's like, Sammy, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, I want your songs and I want your stories.
Because
that's
he
the key
wants his
thing.
ability
Exactly.
to access all of these people that he hasn't been able to see. This dude could be like, also Rama could be like 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For the anime fans, shout out to Attack on Titan. If you know, you know.
Right.
Just leave it there.
Right.
But this is why I think Remic's character is so powerfully written, because like even the way that he appears in the film, it's like they're showing the shot of the
From the sky,
comes out of
like,
nowhere.
yo.
It's like, all right, what is this saying? You find out that he's Irish. You find out that and then the cultural ties to that is like Irish people were enslaved to an extent as well.
Yes.
They
Right.
came to America, but they're still white. And so this character, I think, is expressing this idea that he leverages his whiteness in order to assimilate and appropriate cultures and leverage himself to grow. And if you see this as like intended to be an allegory for the music and entertainment industry and creative industry and all this, then what's taking place is like, thoughts are kind of all over the place, but I'm going to tie two things together.
That's
so you
all
know,
right, man.
the
Just go.
Mine's
so
doing the
that
same.
first post-credit scene that took place, right?
Yeah.
Let's juxtapose that with Sammy's first introduction with Remick, right? When the vampires first see them, all they need is to be let in, like invited in by them, and then they would forcibly take, like make him undead, taking his memories and his music and all that. When Stack and Mary see him at the end of the movie, they offer him the choice. Why didn't they just take it from him? Like they could have received that for themselves, right? So, and I'm kind of like veering off from what you're saying a little bit. We can come back to it, but what I think that was saying is it spoke to the fact that Sammy had already had a successful career. Like Stack even mentioned, like I listened to your electric stuff. I didn't like that as much as the acoustic stuff. Blah, blah, blah. You see Sammy's name on the wall. He has this history. I think a viable comparison, what might have been intended to say by Coogler, is that for an indie artist coming up, like their stuff can get taken from them easily by those who have power, right? But once you're already established, say like Chance the Rapper, for example, he blew up on his own, independent style. In order for him to be assimilated into the club, he would have to agree because he has his own power, something like that. I think that's one thing that could have been being said there. But yeah, I just want to go back to talking about Remic's character because that it's just so complex in so many different ways.
It's a very powerful movie villain that I think once this whole thing dies down, like of like the fanfare of it, I think we're gonna compare him on the same level as villains like Thanos and some of the others because it's such a very multi-layered villain.
Yeah, he has a Heath Ledger moment in this movie of people being like, "Yo, I'm scared as shit because this dude's crazy," but also he makes
Kinda
a couple good points, and like this is where that whole scene of like
some hear me out moments.
right, no, because I also think
right.
So there's the like this being could be 1,000 years old, right? So like he could also be putting on an Irish accent because then he puts on a Southern Mississippi accent, right?
Exactly.
So like, he's using
and then speaks speaks
Right?
Chinese.
Speaks
Yes.
Mandarin,
Oh, that scene was.
Start talking about what he was
Mandarin,
licking.
yeah.
That was crazy. That was
There's
crazy.
also, I just want to like just quickly, like, what a beautiful homage to like a bunch of different like Asian culture as well.
Oh, yeah.
And like Asian culture in the South also.
One of my
Incredible.
homies called me. He was like, "Dog,
Incredible.
they were Asians in the South." I was like, "Nigga, yes, they were Asians in the South.
Yeah.
They were all over."
Right.
Dude.
Like, where'd you think they were?
Right. But yeah, like he's assimilating, like you said. He's trying to figure out what voice fits. He's like doing the chameleon thing.
He was
to
surviving.
Be like, it's an adaptation. Like you adapt to your surroundings to figure out how to survive. That's like also what humans do. That's like our survival tactic is adapting.
Right.
So like he's figuring out like, okay, if I talk like this here, I might be able to sell him. And he's like, if I play this song, they'll recognize this song. So maybe they'll let us in. But then they whitewash the shit out of it and they have a little choreography.
Right.
It's like he slips a little, which was so funny. Like there's also really good comedy in this movie, which I think is like not being talked about. It's hilarious. Like
And
the
it has
car
to be
scene
because of how
with
heavy
Stack
it is,
and
yeah.
Sammy.
Oh yeah.
Come on,
The body
bro. What are we
language was
talking
crazy.
about?
Yeah.
Crazy.
He was like,
But yeah, I think that character, like, I think I want to connect this to what you're talking about earlier about like indie films and A24 and things like this. I think the archetypal way of making a movie is like you have your hero, you have your villain, you have your this, you have your that, you have your this, and they fill the roles, and that's what they do. You have your hero, that's your protagonist. There's nothing wrong with them. There's no Achilles heel. They're perfect. Whatever, they move forward. Then the villain is all bad, so on and so forth. The A24s of the world, the Neons of the world, all the independent films. They make real movies because the characters are flawed. All of them are flawed.
Absolutely.
Even the heroes of the film. You watch Uncut Gems. The protagonist is Adam Sandler's character. He's a piece of shit. There's nothing really redeemable about him. We're just following his story.
Right.
Because we see ourselves.
Because we see ourselves in him.
Through
Because
him.
we see like, oh, he could have some good intentions, but
Yeah.
he's just like lost or he's going about it the wrong way, whatever. With this one, even our heroes, like, they're thieves.
Sinners.
They're sinners.
Yeah.
Like Smoke and Stack, like they kill, they thieve, they rob, they worked with the mafia, like they did all these things, but it's because they were trying to pour into themselves and their community and so on and so forth. So we justify it and we redeem them because we didn't see it, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful way
I love it. They didn't do any flashbacks.
to add. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was so key.
I like a real time movie, and like the one time they do a flashback, you're sobbing because it's him trying to roll the cigarette. First off, that detail, come on, bro. Come. Also, Michael, very well done.
Yes.
But that detail of him like trying to roll the cigarette and like calm himself down, but also remembering, because we're like, how the fuck did they set up this whole club
Right.
in a day?
Right.
Like they got string lights. I didn't see a ladder.
Yeah.
How'd they do this? And they go back and everyone's smiling and laughing, setting up, cooking, getting things prepped. Like it was overwhelmingly emotional.
And they allude to that at the end.
Because
of the
then at the
film.
very end,
when he says,
he's
just
like,
for a few hours.
just like before the
We were
sun
free.
went down, I think that was the best day of my life. And he's like, don't you think? And he's like, yeah, because
Yep.
we were free. And which again, talk about thesis statements.
Yep.
I think it is about freedom, and I think that's why the Ramit character is so brilliant, because you want to think that he's like a white supremacist and so on and so forth. He's like, no, but I will say, like, I know the plan that they had because I got his memories, and like the KKK was going to come back and take all your things and they were going to kill you and so on and so forth. But I'll probably go kill him next if that makes you feel any better. Like he wasn't in it for that. He literally just wanted a community of people to live forever and take over or whatever,
Right.
you know?
As twisted
So
as it was,
it's
still,
twisted,
like,
yeah.
It's layered.
Yeah.
Super layered.
Very
And then
much so.
and then what's interesting is like Stack can now see his memories. And so he's like, again, moving towards, like they had hope towards like being able to have their own space and actually have
Yeah.
freedom and be able to gain wealth. And then halfway through the night, he's like, we're losing a lot of money, bro.
Absolutely.
Like this is not going to be able to work. And then after he's turned, he sees like, oh, this was always a setup. It was never going to work. We were never going to be free. All these things. And the words coming out of his mouth
to
make Smoke go like,
reconsider things.
damn, for real? Like,
And see, that's something that I want to kind of like lean into next. And I think you had said something when we talked a little bit earlier. We were getting coffee about a couple things that stood out to you. But I wanted to tap on this just to kind of bring it in. It's so interesting to me how different people in the story could only get through to certain people, right? Like if Smoke was talking to Mary, that's a shut door. Like it's not gonna happen. But then Stack is talking to Mary, she gets through to him, but he also gets through. Like I love that scene when she comes in there and she's like, you know, you came back after all this time. You didn't talk to me, anything like that, but you still won't tell me. You still can't tell me how you feel. And for a brief moment, we see him be like, you really want me to say it? I love you, but I just wanted to keep you somewhere safe, and it was never going to be here, and it was never going to be with me. And in that moment, you see him affect change in her, but him just saying that affected change within him. Yep. And then just throughout the whole film, you look at how, you know, even the Remix character, how he's like, okay, if I can't get to, I'm trying to speak to Smoke's character, can't get through to him, so I'm going to have Stack take the lead to talk to him because he knows that's a vulnerability. So what I began to notice was, all the vulnerabilities within everybody, which really paints a picture about identity and how people saw themselves in the story. When you see yourself and you might have Smoke's character was like, I think I'm unredeemable, I'm a killer. Stack is just like, oh, I'm a smooth talker that tries to go get things to happen. Sammy's out here like, oh, I'm a blues player, and that's what I want to do. I want people to see me as more than just preacher boy, even though that's what everyone calls me. Mm-hmm. And you even see it when Slim tells him, hey, tell him who you are. Mm-hmm. He's about to go play. Oh, yeah. And he's like, no. Tell him where you're from, right? Mm-hmm. And so you just kind of see how the identities interact. Exactly. I'm Sherry. I'm a sharecropper. But I wanted you to kind of start talking about that, and just give some of your thoughts too, because you said something at the coffee shop that really like triggered a thought for me.
What was that?
You mentioned something about like what Ryan had talked about why he chose to, pick the setting and the vampires. Why?
Just the whole piggybacking off of like how it all started. I think that's what I was talking about. Just the origins of genre and how it all started from, he was listening to some music and I guess I think it was one of his uncles. He passed away and he was really upset about it because he wasn't there with his family because he was working here in LA. And but what resonated growing up was this uncle would play blues music all the time. And this blues music was just really getting to him, and like he was like, I want to do something with this. And I think he was having a conversation with someone, and he was like, what is it that about blues and the genre that, I forget the conversation he exactly had, but blues in a white realm is grunge. And he was talking about
he was talking about like how it transforms depending on what spin you put on it.
And it was very interesting. He kind of ran with that, and he loves horror films and stuff like that. So he wanted to kind of go in that direction, and I just thought that was really interesting, and how just all the life things he was going through made him push to that direction of this film. I also want to know you guys' perspective of twins and why he chose that. And I watched a lot of interviews, so I have a perspective, obviously, of how I perceive things, and then going and watching his interviews and why he did the things he did, and how twins are very prominent, like in Black communities, and the way that twins interact with each other, and why they do the things they do, and like that beginning scene where we see them side by side, it was a comfort thing for the audience. And then when they branch off and you see the different personalities, and it's just phenomenal. I guess I would love to know y'all's perspective.
Matt hasn't really shared.
I was about to say, I want to get, and then we'll come back to that because I know you got something there because I watched that interview. Matt, I want to get your perspective, and then get something from Isabella here. You have the freshest eyes because you saw this movie like last night.
Yes.
So tell me, I know you're sitting here like, that sounds like a second or a third viewing type of thing. I want to get your perspective because I know how I felt the first time I saw it.
Right.
And so I want to kind of see what your viewpoint is, just with the freshest point of view.
On the film as a whole?
Well, I mean, what you took away from it, like watching it, yeah.
So there are a lot of there are quite a few points that were made that I had opinions on, and I love where y'all put it, so I'm gonna leave it there. However, there was one particular moment that was not touched on that stood out a lot to me culturally because of what it meant to me. Being able to see the relationship between, it was Smoke and Annie, and being able to see a full-figured, dark-skinned woman, and there's nothing funny about it.
Absolutely.
There's no jokes. There's no, oh, he's actually sneaking around and doing this with somebody else making her look stupid. It was just a normal relationship between a black man and a black woman.
Yep.
And we believed it once he turned her around. We
Yep.
okay. And
You're a
No
nasty
doubt,
man.
no doubt about it.
yeah, and I want to say that was one of the moments that, although it was small, it meant a lot to me because I can't think of like 5 movies that I've ever watched to where they're not making some sort of joke out of the dark-skinned, full-figured woman
Absolutely.
being who she is, and she was just a love interest. And to me, I feel like culturally that obviously I'm not a dark-skinned, full-figured black woman, but having had various engagements and being able to pick the brains of people who have lived difference in experiences than myself, for them being able to see things like that and being able to even hear things like that from other people does a lot for their mind. And having a lot of black women in my life, that was really important for me to get to see because I know what that does for them. I thought that was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm glad you touched on that because that was something that I wanted to come around to in the middle, but I'm glad since you're bringing it up now, let's talk about it. I do think that in the industry specifically, there has kind of been this viewpoint of like, what is an acceptable black person for an image and what is an unacceptable black person, whether that's, you know, you probably see it in modeling and casting and all this stuff. And even the body positivity movement, which in many ways, in my opinion, I think it's been in some ways good for culture, but I think a lot of it has been very pretentious because now with the rise of Ozempic and all this other stuff, then when people start, when people start getting the you know, stab it in you and lose it all. Now all of a sudden there's not that same message of, oh, embrace and love yourself. And so I think that, you know, what clothing for black women in many ways, I remember back when I was working retail, there weren't a lot of options. You know, this is like a very recent, probably like last 10 years thing. When you look at black women in television and in you know, movies and in, you know, music, it doesn't show the full range of what a black woman is and the appreciation for a black woman. And so I think the big thing for me, even touching on what you said, is that to see Annie's character, they didn't have to go and give you a whole backstory and flashbacks. It was very, very clear to you there was a lot of love there between both of them. There was a lot of care there. They both lost a child, you know, that they had together. But what you see that I love, that's so beautiful. This is probably the most tender you ever. There's only 2 times where you see Smoke in a very tender way, with his brother and with Annie. And even when he was in the shack with her, and he's like, yeah, you know, like, you know, get rid of that money. Like, that's not going to buy you anything. I got the real money. She's like, I don't need all that. I just got something. It's just me here in this spot. And even though she's arguing with him, she's like, yeah, if you don't give me my money, I'm going to cut your black ass. And he's over here like, listen, I'm trying to help you. You see still that love and care between them. And I love how both brothers got to admit how they felt. They got that emotion out. But I do believe that whether it's just this constant showing of black women with no emotion, just aggression, just constantly roasting people, or black men not being able to show full ranges of emotion in film. What I loved about this film is you got to see a full range of emotion from both Smoke and Stack, but also from Annie and Praline's character. And I think, first of all, the girl they got to play as her, she is so fine. Like, she is so fine. And I love, like, even the tension between her and Sammy in the film. But just like the way they were lit, the color grading, all of that. I'm like, finally, black people in the film don't look like barbecue chicken. Like, it was really nice. You know what I'm saying? It was really nice to see that. And then the depth of the relationships that were there. But that's something that I think has been, like I said, a problem. Yeah. And so I want to kind of like touch on that just a little bit.
She's like the matriarch. Like, she's saved everybody.
Yes.
Like, she is the right word? She's the hero of the film. And I think that as black families, that grandmother, that mother that's still holding the barbecue, still holding down the cooking on Thanksgiving, she's like that. She represents that in our Black homes. And I think that's a beautiful, man, it was so beautiful.
I could add something to that too.
Yeah.
I loved how outside of the super deep and intentional spiritual aspects of her, and then so they showed that, right? They showed how layered she was, because they showed the relationship that we had with old boy.
Right.
Smoke. Yeah.
Smoke, right, cool. I'm fresh off the film. Okay.
It's all good. They
Smoke.
cousins.
And then it showed when Cornbread came back after having been bitten, she was talking about, my grease is always fresh.
Yeah.
And that was hilarious.
Right.
I mean, I love that.
And
It
her
shows
level of
she's the
discernment,
auntie.
like she had a lot of discernment to be like, you've been walking up in here all day, you ain't asked nobody to move.
Yes.
Right.
Now all of a sudden you want to be
the discernment.
being kind to one another. Like, where did that come from?
Also, that scene,
Had us
So
questioning,
funny, bro.
had us questioning, like, dang, she right.
She
Like,
has a point, right?
like,
That was
Yeah.
beautiful though,
she was
because
checking
it shows,
everybody in the room, you know what I mean?
Yeah. She had the highest discernment, and it also showed like she was privy to the fact that evil needs permission to enter this space. So why are you now seeking that? Something is off. And I love how as high or as on edge as Smoke was, he didn't quite recognize that aspect of what discernment was. He was more so on guard, but there's a difference between the two. And I love how her character was like the wisdom in that film. And I
The
love
difference
that.
between being on guard and on watch. And she was very much like the on watch, and he was very much like the on guard, because even when Stack was behind the door and she was like, we need to get his body out,
she's like,
she could see the weakness in his attachment to his brother. Not that it was weak that he was attached to his brother, but there was a vulnerability there in the fact that Remick could take advantage of that vulnerability. And so
How did they get him out of there? I forgot about.
he breaks the door down.
he breaks the door down.
Yeah.
Because
starts
On
talking
top
to
of
him,
and then he ran out.
Sandy.
He's like,
Yeah.
Smoke, let me out.
He's like, let me out. It's like, she's like,
He's like,
no,
Yeah, but how
no,
did they
he's
get
Jim
him
Crow.
How did they get him out?
And that was
How did they
hilarious.
get him out though?
Oh no,
She breaks
he breaks the door down.
He jumps
Yeah.
up, and then she throws
the
garlic
water. Garlic, yeah, and then he
so
runs out
was
the-
right.
The water, right?
Yeah, well,
garlic.
pickled garlic.
Garlic.
I also love when the way the camera just like shifted after she threw that. She's like, "What's in that?" She's like, "Pickled garlic. Those ain't. They vampires."
Yeah.
I was like, that was such a movie. Like,
It was so,
this is
like,
clearly like a
action.
vampire.
The
Like, it was
slow
so
push
funny.
in, like it
I
was
love
an
how
action
he
movie.
did that.
She got to have a badass moment. Like
That was so
like,
great.
To the side, like they vampire. Like, it was like
That was great.
and the music, like the score goes like old Hollywood. I also like that they used like the old Hollywood vampire rules
Yes.
of like garlic stakes
Yeah.
through the heart.
I forgot
Like,
about
and then
all
they
that.
have to be
Sunlight,
invited
yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And
I
they
love
and what
that part.
and what I love is too, they
Twilight
explained
ruined
it.
vampires.
Oh yeah, they explained it in a very like continuing the story way. Like you're watching them do the actions, not let me just tell you and break it down. They did it while they were showing
Yeah.
you on the screen.
Gave it
Yeah.
Because she's
anticipation.
teaching all of us.
Yes.
She's teaching them and she's teaching us the rules of the world. Like nobody knew a thing about it.
Yeah.
The only person that knew was the person who believes in like the mysticism of the world.
Right.
And like the witchcraft and the so on and so forth. And I was waiting, like I didn't know much about the movie before I went in. So I didn't know there were gonna be vampires. I didn't know. But as soon as they were like calling her a witch, I was like, oh, we're gonna get weird.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some weird shit in here.
Which
I
is
was
actually
excited for.
that's actually something that I wanted to talk about really quickly here too, from a spirituality standpoint, because you know, I know that I've talked to so many different friends about this film, and that was something that really stood out to them. I just wanted to kind of go around really quickly, just get y'all's perspective. What did you think about the spirituality aspect of the film? I know we got people from different backgrounds, belief systems, everything like that, and I think that's fascinating. So let's talk about it.
I mean, I know a lot of people who didn't want to see it because of the spiritual demonic themes, if you will, because they don't believe in that. But the fact of the matter is evil exists in the world, and you can either choose to acknowledge it and try to, you know, protect yourself and like there are bad people. You can't change that, but you could try to be a good person, right? And you could do good things. And I think it's the same thing of like, don't sit in the dark because you're fearful of something. And I think that's where a lot of the badness in the world comes from fear, comes from ignorance. So I personally, I love movies like this. I find it so interesting, especially like you said, when they stay true to the lore of the thing.
Yeah.
Like it's like the being invited in is so integral because it you know, messes with your brain of like you're seeing people you love and you know they're bad, you know they're evil, you know they're not human anymore, and you have to like consciously say no to them when you don't want to. And I think that shows kind of like what you were saying before of like how different characters in the film affect each other's vulnerabilities and weaknesses or what have you. That's what relationship is. I think the relationships in the movie are so important because to say to Cornbread is such a lovable character. Yeah, he's like one of my favorites. And they have to say no, you know. And I think that's so like, imagine seeing someone you love and care about. Like my mother, if my mother was a vampire, I don't like imagine saying no. You have to stay out there with the monsters because you are one of them. Like the pain and the fight to do that, I think is so like. Oh,
it gets to your heart. Absolutely. And I think that point is so important too, because it's like when you see, this is just outside of course, like the film and lore and everything, there's so much imperfection in people, right? And what I love is that the film, and we'll dive into that after we talk about the spiritual aspect, but the film really dives into like, oh, these people are imperfect, but you kind of like love them, even though you struggle with the flaws that they have. Before we move on to that, any other thoughts that you guys had about like the spiritual aspects of the film? Because I have something I have a feeling someone's gonna say it before I do, so I like that. But any thoughts about what you guys noticed about certain spiritual elements, the contrast of all of it? I mean, obviously the vampire thing we know. Annie doing hoodoo, we saw that, but just any other elements that you guys noticed in the film, just in terms of comparison, contrast, things like that.
Yes. I was waiting for someone else to go, but
he's like, yes. I sat in the dark. Not actually. I thought about this very strongly.
I went on a darkness retreat, and then I just, no. So I think like calling it sinners, one is you're going to trigger a reaction.
Absolutely.
From just so many people. I think like talking about how all these different things are sacrilegious also in the film, like it's a love letter to music and to the blues, and yet saying, but as religious of an experience as this is for us that make this music, the church believes that secular music is sacrilege. And so it's like, damn. So we're trying to express the gifts that God gave us and is telling us to express. But in doing so, we are like condemning ourselves in his eyes, which I think is the dichotomy of that is insane. So that's one. Two, I think you don't have to look at it as Christianity or Islam or Judaism or any specific religion. But what Ramak is doing is literally how religion is spread in the world. He's coming in, he's saying, I can promise you immortality, which would be heaven if we're considering it that, right? So he's like, you can live here and it's going to be fucking brutal, or you just come outside, I can take care of it, you'll wake up and you will live forever. And eventually you get enough people to believe, and then what happens? Now you have conduits. And so you have ways to connect to different people that you couldn't get in touch with. And so now it spreads even more, and the religion spreads even more, and it spreads even more. You get people to believe in the potential of immortality or an afterlife or so on and so forth. So I think in that sense, it is a very spiritual film.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's walking you through how Christianity spread in places like Ireland. Like that's why we have St. Paddy's Day, because a man went there and spread Christianity. And now we celebrate him hundreds of years later. Like that's how...
with alcohol, but ironically.
Right, you know what I'm saying? But again, it goes into like, we celebrate with spirits because that's how the sacrilege in how it connects to how we are supposed to express ourselves and our gratitude to the thing that we worship. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be there. It's like in the Catholic Church, it's like you drink the wine, but don't overindulge. But you're presenting it to children at like First Communion, and then saying you're gonna like this thing, but you can't like it too much. So it's like
setting it up as if it's like, this is perfect,
right?
This is a place where you can feel safe, And then, you know, you look at it, whether it's Catholic Church or different things with like a lot of the child abuse, the molestation, things like that that's happening. It's like I mean, maybe not even just to that extreme, but like this is a safe space. Just like let yourself, what was it? Fellowship in love.
Yep.
Just come on
Fellowship in
in.
love.
But then there's not actually the depth of that happening. I wanna continue on that because I think you set the foundation and the stage for that. Chaz, I know you got thoughts, bro. I'm looking at your face. I know that face when I see it. Give me some thoughts.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it. I think it was a really interesting cultural commentary on spirituality and religion. But like as a Christian, looking at it from a different lens, I think it was just interesting to see a different perspective. The one thing I noticed was that the way that they presented the church was in the form of a dichotomy. Whereas Sammy's father, first thing we see him telling him is put that guitar down and just like stay here, right? So he's telling him, so again, going back to the theme of freedom and oppression, he's like telling him stop, like, but he says it in tandem with the fact that like you're going out and wilding out. Like it's clear that everybody in the movie indulged in some form of sin. So he was like telling him that in tandem with like, yo, what are you going out to do? So that's one thing. On the other end, we see his father telling him, just stay here and play music in church, which is also, I believe, a form of oppression in a way. What the movie didn't, the movie's answer to freedom was like, go and do what you want. Like don't allow anybody else to dictate how to use your gift. But speaking again from like personally from a Christian spiritual perspective, there's a third option. You can still go into the world with your gift and honor God with it. Like it doesn't have to be like it's either in the church or not at all. Like that's horrible. And I think that is historically something that the church has done wrongly. From another perspective, just to address one point, of like one of the points that you said about like the whole, like both of y'all, the whole fellowship and peace.
Fellowship and love.
It's clear that was being presented in a way that was like dark and not okay and like cult like. But I wouldn't agree that that's how it was, that religion has been spread throughout history. Because, like, just for example, being that this was like a Christian story, or like there were Christian themes in the story, in America, we could say that Christianity was forced on black people through slavery by like white oppressors, ripping out, like cherry picking verses from the Bible and saying like, oh yeah, you're supposed to be a slave and blah, 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 all this stuff. Right. But what people don't often address is like Christianity started in the Middle East. The early founding church fathers, many of them were African. It was in Ethiopia. Like Ethiopia was one of the first. Ethiopia and Armenia were like two of the first Christian nations, and they were
preaching to the eunuch.
Yeah, and they were. Christianity was spread all throughout the Middle East and in Africa and other regions before it ever touched Europe. So, I think there was like this twisting and misinformation of history that's taken place as well that's confused people, and even just like considering how it spread from the very jump. Like every one of Jesus' disciples and apostles were brutally murdered and killed except for one. They died saying like, no, he rose again. So it wasn't just like nobody would do that if they were living on a lie, you know. That's just like another tangent. But what was the third point? This whole fellowship and unity thing. I think it like to what you were speaking about, immortality. This and it ties into the inviting evil in type of thing. I really loved that rule that was set in the film because like no matter like you've gotta be ignorant to believe that there is not evil in the world that like exists beyond what we can see.
1000%.
So I think that what that was speaking to was this idea, tying it back into the music industry as well, like these false promises that are given, whether it's from from a career perspective, from a spiritual perspective, even just from a communal perspective, where if you don't have discernment, you can easily fall into these traps and these lies and be sucked into something that you're never meant to be in. The last thing I'll say is like, I think it was, and I don't think this was necessarily his intent, but what I was seeing was this parallel, or like a contrast to a biblical belief. I think, first of all, anytime somebody does a great job of sharing a truth about human nature, it's going to speak to something on a spiritual level.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we're spiritual beings, can't deny
Yeah,
that. But one thing I saw that was really interesting was when somebody was taken and turned into a vampire, they went from being like alive physically to undead. There's a biblical notion or theological standpoint where like we're born spiritually dead but then become alive again, and it was like
so almost
a
like the
flipped
process
version
happening
of it.
on its head.
Yeah, I thought it was just an interesting way to look at it as well.
But in the invitation of still fellowship and love, but with a dark twist on it,
but
where
yeah,
you don't
it's
have
like
a choice.
everything is
Right.
flipped upside down.
Yeah.
Like the way it was presented.
Yeah.
I think there's just, I'm not making any conclusions about that. I just thought it was interesting.
No, that's a great lens to look at that through. Demi and then Matt.
What you want to know
What you think?
of the spiritual?
I always want to know what you think.
Spiritual. I don't know. I kind of agree with what everyone is saying. Like y'all went deep into that. Like, I how it resonated with me, I guess, in a way, is like, I don't know. I guess I grew up in the church heavy. I grew up with Jamaican. My grandparents were pastors, and my grandma's in the church, and she made all the gowns, and so I've heard a lot of that, like, keep be in the church, and that whole, it's such the secular music, and turn that off, and that's not of God, and all those little things that if you grew up in a church, like we used to be like Jehovah's Witness, like on the street talking to people. Like I just have vivid memories of that, and so it kind of resonated in a way of like I knew something bad was gonna happen because like he was like, that man told him to stay in that damn church. He needs to be in there and not go with them. So I knew it was just gonna be a wild ride of like whatever was about to happen. So yeah. Yeah. I got thoughts, but I wanna hear from you, Matt.
Okay, so once again, my mind is in a different space. It's okay.
We love the different perspectives.
I love the different space. It's like taking different lenses and putting them on the same camera. I love that. I love that.
And with that being said, I do want to start by saying I really value and appreciate what each and every one of you has had to share, and I also value those things. I just don't want to say the same thing twice. What you said.
Exactly.
You introduced some trains of thought that I hadn't even quite gotten to the point of being able to process, which I thoroughly appreciate because you gave me something to really think about. I got homework now.
Yeah, I told you that's what he's gonna do, man.
Yeah, literally, I saw the look on your face when you said, "Hey, I know you cooking something right
Yeah,
now." Getting that wrist work. I saw.
yeah.
It. I was like, "Oh, hold on now. Gumbo, you cooking something?"
Yeah.
But I recognized in the midst of watching the film and even afterwards something that really stuck with me. That's not. There are spiritual elements to what I'm about to say. I'll say. I first became privy to this idea from reading the Bible. And I'd recognized that a major theme that jumped out at me through the screen into my soul was the fact that you reap what you sow. And if you don't steward the opportunities, the space and the time that you have responsibly, yourself and those around you will metaphorically and or in this case, literally burn down. And when Remick and all his homies and them, when they were looking at the barn, before anything actually happened, they saw spiritually what was transpiring in that space.
Because there was no walls. To
Yes,
that.
there were.
You're on the right
That's
track.
what they saw. And the results, what we didn't see on screen, the result of what had happened was because the twins were robbing both sides. They were scheming. They were doing all the stuff that they were doing. Then they dragged others into their lack of, not lack, because everybody knew what they were doing. But essentially, they dragged everybody into what they had going on. And spiritually, I believe that there was something burning the entire time.
Consequences. And
Yeah, the consequences were burning the entire time, but it was just the smoke.
Annie even says, she says, "I don't want your blood money."
Yeah. Annie was really the only one that she knew better, but she still ended up following suit anyways. And I recognize that, like, wow, like, this is a beautiful visual of you reap what you sow. And if you don't steward what you have wisely and well, those around you will suffer as a result. And that's exactly what happened.
That's really good.
That is, I think, a really good way to kind of like tie in everything. A couple things that stood out to me, let me just set a little background. So I grew up in church. Like, it is undeniable that I grew up in church. Like,
we know.
Trust me, it's very undeniable. If I didn't go to church on Sunday, it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because my parents are both pastors. So I grew up in that environment, and I think for me, while I related to all the characters, I think Sammy's character was the one that I found like a whole lot of like personal connection to. Eating that ice cream. Because you gotta lick it just right. You know what I mean? Like you want it to last, right? That's why she said, "You a nasty man." She said it earlier.
No, that Coogler, he's something else.
Oh, Coogler. Okay,
well, you're teaching generation. Go ahead. Sorry.
Not you, Matt. Maybe.
It's like
who
that
knows?
one Key and Peele sketch.
To piggy off that, I've never seen sex scenes the way that was.
Neither have
that
I.
was just
I
so.
gotta touch on that too. Go ahead.
That is
right
a
after I
whole
said
other
I'm a pastor's son, and I approve this
Let's talk
message.
about sex, shall we?
Right.
We should. It's
As a
life.
PK.
It's how I got here. And us too, hopefully. But one of the things that I think is so fascinating about the spiritual element of it, at least for me, I saw the battle. I felt like, Smoke, Stack, they were kind of like, all right, I'm kind of like, this is the life that I'm relegated to live. The only character who had redemption in that film was Sammy. That is something I never, Smoke towards the very end, we see him, like one of my favorite parts was when she's like, Smoke, if you put that down, you can hold him. And she's like, your identity, if you let, not just the actual cigarette you're holding, but if you put away your identity that you see in yourself,
Come on now.
you can actually have the thing that you thought you lost.
Stop being Smoke and just be Elijah.
Which is your exact. And I love how she doesn't call him
She says
Smoke.
Elijah.
She says Elijah.
Yeah.
If you put that smoke down, you can hold the thing you thought you lost.
Come on now.
And what was so fascinating for me, if we talk about spiritual themes, redemption is such a big thing. Outside of just religion, because I think there's religion and then there's like the spiritual elements of things. And I kind of want to lean into that. Growing up in church, being a pastor's kid, I think the number one thing you would always hear is don't do this, right? And my parents, they were a little more balanced than a lot of things I heard. But it was just like, okay, for a fact what you should not do. Mm-hmm. But when you're growing up and you're trying to find your own identity, right? We tend to feel safe in places of identity. So if people get to know you, oh, you're the funny guy, or oh, you're the really great guitar player, or you're like the person who brings everybody together, or like you're the suave guy, whatever. We lean on those things to help us get through moments. But as you're going through moments where you're like, okay, I'm still trying to find out who I am, while I'm leaning into what people expect me or who they expect me to be, there's that battle within you to figure out, okay, this is what I was taught by my parents. This is what I have learned to lean on in life, but I'm still always going to be figuring out in every season of my life, in every new decade, through every new experience, whether that's school, family, relationships, who am I? And I think the reason why that connected so well to me is that secular thing we were talking about, like you were talking about, because obviously as musicians, that's something that we've talked about. You have this dichotomy of like, I like this artist, I like this music, this best expresses what I feel safe in and comfortable with. But then at home, it was like, well, we listen to gospel music, or we listen to this type of music, or certain music just wasn't allowed, at least at a certain age, because my parents were always concerned. That's why when Sammy's father was telling him, put the guitar down, Samuel, and promise that you're going to give your life to the Lord. And what I love is that Sammy does not abandon his faith. He does not, he went out, did his whole thing, experienced the horror of that. He comes back with a broken guitar, which is kind of a broken form of identity. But at the very end, what I love is he still holds on to the fact that he's like, I still have my faith. I just can't let it be stuck inside of this space. And you see that happen even carrying on. And what I love is at the very end, the last post-credit scene, you see him playing This Little Light of Mine, but he plays it in the style of the blues. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, that final scene, I was like, oh, because some people got up and they walked away, or they were like, I don't know why they had him play that. I'm like, that's clearly showing you. He's like, this is who I am. Mm-hmm. I am both church and the street corner, right? I am both the blues player and the believer in a higher power. That is still my identity. And at the very end, when they come and they offer that thing to him, he's like, I think I've seen enough of this place to last me my entire life. And I just thought that was so beautiful to be able to say, like, as a person who's been in the church, who has dealt with a lot of negativity, in a lot of negative experiences, beautiful experiences, of course. But you're on that battle and that journey of kind of like figuring out, okay, what part of my faith, like I know this is real. I've experienced it. There's no doubt about it. I know there's a God. I know all that. But what part of my faith do I associate from my experiences with people? Do I associate with God and my relationship with that and spirituality? And so I do believe this film is literally a journey of, like, at least for me watching it, you have your parents, what your parents teach you in that belief, and then you have what you kind of resolve within yourself to say, okay, now this is real to me as an adult. And then what will I leave behind if I ever have a family? And so I thought that was interesting. The hoodoo thing, of course, my mom's Caribbean. Okay. So I got Creole dad, I got Caribbean mom. So that whole thing, I was just like, oh, something funky going on. You know what I'm saying? Because in the Caribbean, you already know, like, they don't, especially Haiti, but I know in the Bahamas, they don't be playing around with hoodoo, voodoo,
my
juju,
grandma would not step foot in that movie theater.
Voodoo to doo-doo, like whatever it is. Like, but I think to actually tap on something that you said about the spirituality and the faith spreading to Africa, and then what you were talking about cultural differences, and then we'll get into this last bit here. One thing I thought that was so fascinating was the similarities between Irish culture and African culture. Coogler talks about this so strongly. Irish culture is very matriarchal. Black culture also in some ways tends to be very much centered around the mom, right, in the family. Not that the dad's not a strong figure, but even in a tribal sense, right, there's a lot of that connection. And what I thought was so fascinating about it was that when Sammy is saying the Lord's Prayer at the end, and then Remick comes in like, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, right? He's like saying it. He's like, I hate those men, but the words still bring me comfort, right? What I thought was so interesting is that even the devil in that moment, it kind of alludes to the thing in scripture where it's like Jesus is standing on top of the the temple, and then he's like, oh, throw yourself down. Even the devil knows the scriptures. All right. But what I found fascinating was it was culture in a sense that had been either stolen or changed in some ways. There were parts of, Africa that had experienced Christianity, but a lot of slaves that came to America, they had their own cultures and their own beliefs. And so there's this dichotomy of, okay, wait a minute, the same Bible that I'm reading that tells me about the story of Moses and people leaving to want to be free, you're going to twist that same verse or scripture to talk about, oh, slaves, obey your masters. And so there's this dichotomy of what I understand to be freedom and what you understand to be freedom, what you're feeding me. And that's the whole reason why there's the black church and the white church in America, because it's about that dichotomy and how to teach people to not live in that bondage that dichotomy can present. And so I think like the balance and the nuance of looking at Sammy's character and how he sees everything happening, he's the only one that makes it out of that experience, besides Smoke when he gets shot, and he actually lives a long life as a result of that. It was more of being like, listen, I have to embrace the fullness of who I am, right? And I have to work all those details out while not abandoning my foundation. So I thought those themes were really, really fascinating. To kind of like wrap up things here, I want to just ask you guys, like, in terms of creativity in the industry? Because I know obviously we talked about this. This film has grossed, I believe, over $180 million right now.
What's the budget on it?
I think it was 90 mil. 90. Yeah,
90 for the film budget.
90 for the film budget. Okay.
Yeah, but then there's marketing and there's other expenses.
Right, which I know you learned on that deep dive.
Yep. I would love to comment on that when I can.
Yes, please. So I just want to kind of talk about that real quick as we're wrapping up here and give some final thoughts from everybody. What are you guys' thoughts about like where films are going right now, creativity, and also because there's a trend that I'm seeing with like films that have no intellectual property but are making waves in the industry right now, and it's what people want to see. So just really quickly, like we'll talk about that briefly, and then we'll just do some final takeaways.
Oh man, just
Go first.
okay. Just real quick, I was watching. Have y'all heard of Number One on the Call Sheet, the documentary?
Yeah.
Dog, I was just watching it yesterday, and it was just so cool to like. I was learning a lot of things I didn't know before, but just it made me consider more deeply, like to even get to the point of a movie like Sinners being made. There was so much that had to be plowed through, like starting with Hattie McDaniel back in the day, to Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, and all these people that like to. The fact that Sidney Poitier was doing what he did in the like 60s and 70s was incredible. Like there's I forgot the name of the movie, but there's this one scene where this like white character slaps him, and then he immediately slaps the character back, and he had it put in his contract. If this cannot be shown anywhere in the world where I'm not seen slapping him back in retaliation. It's like just little things like that. I don't know. I'm still just processing how incredible it is, and the boldness that was required, the courage that was required for like black entertainers and creatives and artists over it. And it was not long. It was like less than 100 years.
Yep.
For us to even be able to have this conversation now is really
And
like,
freely,
wild
for that
to me.
matter.
Man,
Yeah.
like it's, and something that we didn't touch on, like from the beginning of the movie, we see like the work that they're doing is literally what their ancestors were forced to do leading up to like the sharecropping and all that.
Which
right?
hit me real hard because I'm from NOLA, and my dad
Yeah.
used to tell me stories about like my dad was born in the 50s. And
There
he
are
used to tell
people
me
alive
stories
now
about-
who were picking cotton.
Yes.
or having to pass that Clarksdale scene, having to pass all over to the side when a white person was passing. Or like
we didn't even
using
talk about the
color
Asian
back
family,
there.
by the way. We
Right.
missed
Yeah.
that entirely.
Yeah.
Lovely little
we
family.
gotta
Oh man, there's this movie, like it just shows how layered this movie is. But I was just throwing that out there because your question about where things are going, like we can't even really talk about it without just paying homage to where we've come from, like the past,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
So that was it. I just wanted to put that out there as like a fire starter.
Matt.
Dang. I'm going to say something I really appreciate about films like this is it creates an opportunity to feel more encouraged while presenting visibility for more black directors to be creating thriller and horror type films and creating spaces that aren't just centered around black pain, but more so it's like this is a whole fantasy story that's not based purely in a reality of a black pain, but it's it's something completely different that we have not gotten to see. Like I've never seen a movie like Sinners before, ever.
Never.
Right.
Don't think
It could have just been a period piece, and I would have, if without vampires, I would have been fine.
Swear to God.
Yeah.
Because it was already getting me with that.
Yeah, and I really value how Jordan Peele and Ryan Coogler are able to create these stories that are tremendously encouraging and inspiring people to create stories that aren't just based on pain.
Absolutely.
To create stories that are like, dang, I wish I could see myself in this, but I don't. Like, I'm sure a Black Project X type film is in the works right now because of people like them who don't just see only room to create space based off of our pain, but like, well, we're creative people, we can make something happen. We don't have to be in this film just representing one particular thing. We are people, black people, not a monolith when it comes to the film industry. We are
Black people are not a monolith. Kia feels scared.
You get it? Yeah. I love that. And and I've
That
been
show
able to
never
even
gets
just,
old.
like, I need to see that.
That show
It's
never
so
gets
funny.
old,
Oh my
man.
God.
Dang, I haven't seen that one. The show
Yeah.
does not get old. Absolutely not. Those skits will live on forever.
Never,
That's
ever,
a fact.
ever.
That's a fact. But I've even been able to see interviews within the past few days of people just making a reference to the fact that they now feel like they can because they saw. And I love that. That's beautiful to me. So as far as I'm concerned, the sky is the roof. Yeah, there's so much that can be done, and there's so much that we can do, and I feel like we're just getting started, and that's beautiful to me. Yeah,
I love that. The sky is the roof. Isabella.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what you said, I feel like movies like this give young creatives hope that you can create stories that mean something and that are beautiful and engaging and spark these conversations. And I think personally for me myself, there's moments in time as an actor and as a creative where I see some of the things that are out and that are making so much money. I'm like, what is this garbage?
Yeah.
Like, not to be hating or anything like that.
No,
but,
you're just telling it like it is, for real.
like,
you want to hate. Come on. You know you want to hate.
but I do.
It's not even
Because,
hate.
like, you see the same things. Like, I don't want to see another remake. I don't want to see another live action version of something we've already seen before. I don't want to see
Especially
a
if it's
sequel,
garbage
a
the
prequel.
way it's done twice.
Like, how many people are in this room that are fully capable of writing a compelling story that is true and original and special to them, that can be, related to and inspiring to other people? Like, we have millions of stories to tell. Why do we keep telling the same ones over and over again?
Because Hollywood is scared to not make money.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And not in addition to that, it's like, I remember, like, some of my favorite movies are, from the 80s and the 90s, where you watch these movies and you saw people that you could relate to. They were just your average person. It was some kid who got a lucky break and auditioned for this one guy, and boom, like Miles Caton. This is his introduction movie, and wow, what like an incredible thing to have, and something so special and poignant and like important to the culture and where we are in the world. Like, you don't see that a lot anymore. You don't see just regular people. Every freaking movie has Margot Robbie or Adrian Brody, which they're phenomenal creatives. They're amazing. They're so talented. But I'm tired of seeing the same faces.
She's like, if you're watching this,
And-
I have beef against you. Make some space.
No, but
Space the floor.
movies like this are inspiring because they give you hope that, like, you can tell these interesting stories. You can have these people that we don't see often enough.
That's why I like A24 a lot. Like, they
Yeah.
do that pretty well.
So I'd say, like, this movie gives me hope, but for some time I was kind of less hopeful about where the industry was going and everyone finding their place and their ability to create in it. So I think we're moving forward, because I mean, also, just if you look in the history of, like, evolution of anything, we're at the very beginning of film. If you think in the grand scheme of things, film is
100%.
not that old. So there is so much to discover and to create.
1000%. I agree. Demi.
Where is the industry going? That's the question.
I mean, yeah, where is it going, or where do you, like, in terms of what you're seeing in film and everything, like, there's a trend that seems to be happening. Where do you think that trend is going with what you're seeing?
I think that through COVID, through what was the whole thing with
The strike.
The strike.
Yeah, the strike.
I think it paused a lot of things, and a lot of things in the works, and a whole production takes a long time. So
Right.
I think we're finally getting those great things that were supposed to happen a long time ago. And I mean, I can only imagine this idea for this movie, how long he's had that in the works. I don't know a lot about. I feel like as an individual, I just have great taste, but I don't really know the terms.
She's like, if I don't say
terminology.
so myself. And that camera's
Take that
right
with
on
the
me.
camera real
I've
quick.
got
I
excellent
don't know
taste.
the terminology and all the words and knowing how to say things the way you guys. Oh my God, the way you put your words together, phenomenal, gorgeous ways of explaining things. Sometimes I don't feel like I know how to do all that. But I do know that it's a lot of trash being made. And I don't feel like I feel things so heavily, and I know when something feels good, and I know when something is just not it. And this movie was it, and I'm you know, whenever you get that feeling of, oh wow, like finally, you know, finally there's something worth going to the movie theater for. I don't like wasting money. We're not going to the if the trailer's not making me feel good, you know what I'm saying? If we're not like I'm not going to the movies, and I haven't been going to the movies much in the last few years, and to be able to sit in on a film and be like, wow, like
amazing,
and feel good. And I hope that all the great movie storytellers out there, that you go and you actually, you know, make that thing and make people feel good and feel something, and I'm hopeful for what's to come. Yeah,
that's good.
Well said. How articulate of you.
Was it? I hope so.
She be doubting herself. She knows she got
Right.
it. Go ahead.
Right.
No, I really,
All right. So I got a lot of thoughts. I'm gonna try to. First, I want to say that we live in a capitalist country that would like to make us believe that our ideas are very expensive, just intrinsically expensive. Stories don't have a budget. Stories are free. We can tell stories to each other right now if we wanted to. The story does not cost money. The medium with which we choose to tell the story will cost a certain amount of money, depending on who you have working on it, who believes in it, who doesn't believe in it, what you got to do to make it work, so on and so forth. If you find like-minded people and you find your community, I promise you don't need a lot of money to make a movie. You don't. Anora just won Best Film. That had a $5 million budget. $5 million.
And won an Oscar.
Avatar 2.
Many Oscars.
Yeah.
It won all the Oscars. It won everything it was nominated for.
Yeah.
Because it's a phenomenal story. And because it had a low budget, you have to work with people who like you, who like your vision, who believe in the vision, so on and so forth. You can tell everyone that was on that film
Wanted it.
loved making that film. You can tell everyone that was on Ryan's crew loved making that film. Most of the film takes place in one location. Also, that's not being talked about. That's hard to do.
It's so hard to do.
To make that good of a film where 80% of the movie takes place just at the juke joint. Again, Hollywood would like to make you believe that your dreams are really far away because of the budgets on some of these crazy ass movies. And some of these crazy ass movies are great.
You were about to say something about Avatar too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. So with the success of those movies and the fact that they grossed $2 billion, like multiple films have grossed $2 billion.
Which is crazy.
Insane. People are like, that's a successful movie. So now when something crosses $1 billion, when Joker crossed $1 billion, it was like the first rated R movie to cross $1 billion. Good for you. When Joker 2 came out, I don't know, say it grossed like 300, 400 million. Everyone's like, flop. I'm like, bro, $400 million. Like, the budget's not
It's a lot of money.
The budget's also not crazy on those movies because, why am I blanking on his name right now?
Joaquin Phoenix or
the
No,
director?
the director.
I'm blanking on his name too. I know he directed Hangover.
Yeah.
Tyler Perry.
Yeah. That's
Anyways, we'll figure out his name after. I'm
Medea goes to Gotham.
right. Could you imagine? Oh my god.
That would be crazy.
so
No,
And then Cat Williams would be there. Let me tell y'all something right now.
Cat Williams in Gotham is crazy work.
I think we need to get out of here.
I think the Joker.
Blanking on his name. Todd
Phillips.
Thank you.
We did that again. Second time in a row. Come on, baby.
Let's go, baby.
All right.
But like he has a really good story. He made an original story. A lot of people talk about how it's derivative. The first one's derivative because it reminds them of this movie, that movie.
Right.
Again, you cannot help but be inspired by people that you're inspired by, and he was inspired by Martin Scorsese, so he made a movie based on the inspiration. You're never going to be able to make something 1,000% original because you are inspired by everything, whether you know it or not.
Yep. And that's what Sinners, I think, shows you with all the music and everything.
Correct.
It's not 100%.
He literally put Buddy Guy in the movie. So like for those that don't know, Buddy Guy is a blues, probably the blues legend.
Yeah.
Right? Like he ties in like Muddy to like John Mayer. That's how much he transcends time. So to put him in the movie was absolutely insane. Which like I'm from the Chicago area, so he's also a Chicago legend, so it was like really cool to see him. But anyways, Avatar 2 grossed $2.32 billion. With its film budget and its marketing budget, the marketing budget was including re-releasing Avatar 1 in theaters its break-even point was about $2 billion. A break-even point in Hollywood is 2.5 times the amount of money that it cost. However, its marketing budget was about $400 million. Its regular budget was about $400 million, not including all of the money that it cost to get in theaters, so on and so forth. So to break even, they had to make $2 billion.
Right.
Sinners' budget was $90. It had about a $45 to $50 million marketing budget. Their break-even point was around $225 million, $230 million. As of yesterday, it grossed $236 million.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Taking those numbers.
That's worldwide or domestic?
That's worldwide.
Okay.
Taking those numbers. Also, Avatar 2 did over 2 times the amount, not in America, that it did in America, which you could talk about the weirdness of that too. That's a whole other conspiracy theory type shit. But profit margin, just talking about profit margin, Avatar had a 2% profit margin past the break-even point. Because 32 million in comparison to 2 billion.
Yep.
Not a lot of money in the green.
32 million.
32 million.
Not 320 million.
Sorry, 320 million. Yeah, sorry.
I was like, yeah, that's a big...
2.32. Yeah, 2.32. So 320 million, whatever it was.
That's like a Nora.
Not a lot of money. And then with Sinners, it's like a 5%. So, and it's still going. They also got another 2 weeks in theaters because they extended. So like this movie's going to be very successful financially. And it's not even done. So people calling it a flop right now, and it's not even done, and they got extended.
Right.
Putting it back into IMAX theaters also I think is huge because he made it for IMAX.
Right.
So like, it's the idea that it's a flop.
Yeah.
Or it's losing the money is just not real.
That's like commenting trash bins on an album at 12:01 and the album dropped at 12. It's like,
you know what I'm saying?
You listen to probably one song and you have to see the whole thing through. But I'm glad you pointed that out because I think even as a person who loves to watch movies and you're indulging in certain things, sometimes there's this comparison of like, oh, well, this movie made more than this movie, so that must mean the movie was better or it had more impact. I'm like, well, the second Aquaman was trash, and that movie grossed also $1 billion. You know what I mean? Like, there are tons of movies that are more understated in terms of how much they gross, but the impact is there. And I think that I have not seen a film in a really, really long time that has had the cultural impact where people, I'm talking to people, they want to go, they're like, they don't have A-list or none of that. Like, we're spoiled with A-list. You get 4 movies now. As of today, you get 4 movies with, I think it's like $27 or something. But there are people I know, they're like, dude, I'm going to go watch it in IMAX. Or they're going to the Vista Theater, which is where we saw it with the class. They're going and spending their money on this. And they want to see it in the best possible format. Because it's not just, oh, the film looks good. It's doing something to them. It's doing something within them. And so I think that, just to your point, to all you guys' points here, and just, of course, wrapping up here, I believe that from what I'm seeing with the movie industry, the age of like the superhero movies, the big blockbusters, like studios throwing, money at, these creators to make these intellectual property, style films. I think people like it and they're like, okay, cool. But I think it's just been so overdone. And I think people are looking for real creativity and they want the story to appeal to them.
It's got to be a great story. Anytime
exactly.
If somebody's able to tell a great story, it's like people are going to like it. And it was when it became more about like, we need to make more money.
Absolutely. Because you abandon the connecting point, which is the story, for, oh, let's just do big set pieces and things blowing up and then a joke here and there, which I kind of call like the Marvel formula at some point, which they
were good. After Endgame. There's like one movie, it was like one of the Spider-Man movies after
probably
Endgame.
Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah.
Which some people criticize as fan service because they just brought back all the different Spider-Mans. But I still think it was still a great movie. Really, like, that's the only movie of...
Is it because they changed like who made it? Like the...
No, they just brought back...
It was about pumping out. They started to turn it into like a social media content type of format.
Yeah.
And even within the film, there were jokes about the actual characters in the film. I'm just
saying the process in general.
Yeah.
Like, before it was like, yo, let's take Iron Man was great. Avengers was great. Once it was like, oh, we on to something here. Let's make more so we can make more money. Like, more quantity equals more profit. That's not how it works.
I'm not even like that type of person to go see those. I know nothing. And I would always end up going and watching it with somebody. And in speaking to like the change of it, I haven't been going to see those movies in a while. And
Right.
it probably is because
The
of what
stories
you're saying.
No, they're bad. They're
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, but that's the thing that we're looking at in terms of connecting points. And I think for me, if I watch a movie like Past Lives, if I watch a movie like Oppenheimer, I know you don't like that movie, but Oppenheimer.
I don't either.
We had a whole conversation, and you guys are probably gonna agree and look you right across from each other, so you can hash it out after we're done.
It's beautifully created, but it is a little bit sleepy.
So since we're talking about Sinners,
They had to put 3 unnecessary smashing scenes in there to make it interesting. None of them added to the plot.
Oh,
Not
so you
one.
agree with that?
I agree.
Okay.
For sure.
So
It beats Cheeks for no reason.
if
All right,
we,
don't be trying to rap for like 5 minutes.
And I saw it.
So
on-
we'll
and I
talk
saw it on the
about.
best theater ever. So it's like
She's like the screen format didn't change nothing, but of course I want to do another one of these where we just talk about like films in general, because I think my friend Sam, like you guys would love to have a conversation with him or to hear his thoughts on these things coming out of film school. But I just want to say from what I'm seeing right now, I do believe there is an opportunity, and even to your point, to a bunch of points around here, hilarious. I heard that. If you want to make a film, if you want to make a project, this is something that I think I may have said this like episode 1, which we're like 23 now into this thing. If you have an idea, if you have a belief, if you have a business project, a script, whatever it is, all you need is that belief in what you're doing, and you just need to run with that. And I truly believe the right people will come around you, the right ideas will come to you. You'll take something that's raw and watch it get developed. And there's something that my dad has always said this to me. He'll say the fruit on the tree is always a sign of the root underneath. And so if you're aware of the fact that whatever's coming to you, whatever ideas are coming to the top of your brain, it just means that there's something in you that's powerful. And you need to lean into that, and don't lean into what if it's not the right weather or the right time or the right season or the right temperature? You just have no idea. A film idea you might get today. Be right. Exactly. Tell them. You might have to wait a couple years, but that thing can turn around and be something that impacts people. Shoot, we might even be having a conversation about it at some point, like we're doing right now. But really, genuinely, great film, incredible experience for me. Just give me a one-word thought as we're just gonna go around just like this. One word. I know it's tough. I know it's tough for all of us. Give me one word about what the impact the movie had on you. One word. Claudio.
Revolutionary.
You all right? That's okay. She's like, knock me out my seat. Demi.
no words.
That's all right. We'll put that in one. No words. Isabella.
Inspiration.
Chaz. He's like, it's coming to me. It's coming to me.
Give me like 10 more seconds. Go over here.
All right, Matt.
Abstract.
10 seconds aren't up yet.
We'll let it
Marinate.
dissolve and marinate the tension.
I'm trying to find the right word, you know?
It's there.
It's there.
It's in the dictionary.
I believe it.
Somewhere.
Open it up.
It's in the
Might need to cut this.
Yeah.
So jump to it.
That's all right.
Because I really want to think of the next
I
word.
found a
I
word.
just had the Jeopardy music.
Transcends.
Transcendent. That's a good one. That's a solid one. Look at you with the Oppenheimer face now.
No, this Oppenheimer face.
That's crazy.
That's why.
That's
Criminal. Absolutely criminal. Oh, Sam, if you're watching this, bro, I wish you were here, man. Wow.
Yeah, I don't think this is quite it, but I'll say retrospective.
Wow. I think my only word for it is powerful. It's so hard to put a word on it because I'm still processing everything. Yeah. But I think we all are going to be processing this. We didn't even get to talk about all the aspects. The acting. I think this is Michael B. Jordan's most nuanced film that I've ever seen next to Fruitvale Station. But I mean, just an amazing story. If you haven't seen the film yet, if you listen to this or watch this, sorry. There's tons of spoilers in this.
Don't do this.
Yeah,
Watch the movie.
Exactly. Watch the movie first. I know this is at the end. I'll put this at the beginning. Here we go. So if you are going to watch this episode right now, I just want to warn you, there are a couple of spoilers. Watch the film Sinners first and then come back for the conversation. But ye be warned, all right? With that being said, I want to thank each and every one of y'all for coming here, giving your perspective. Thank you so much. And we can clap a little louder for that. Yeah, come on. Yeah, give me that little foot action you did earlier. You know? There you go. And I want to thank y'all again for tuning into this episode. What are your thoughts about the movie Sinners? How many times have you seen it? What are some things that you took away? Let us know at _Full Circle Pod on Instagram and Full Circle Pod on TikTok. That is all the time that we have for today. But as I always love to say, have a great one from your favorite brother. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.